Alright, so for this video, we are going to do an analyzation of this teacher who decided to analyze people's noses from different ethnic backgrounds. And I'm going to show you guys the video, so I want y'all to watch the whole thing. It's only like a minute long. And from there, I'm going to detail the things that I've noticed. Alright, so here we go.
Side, right? Can you, here, turn right there. You can see that, right? You can really see he's Asian. So you got the flat, you got the superorbital thing going on as well, which is not uncommon. Look at here. See how it's like flat here? But it's more, but it sticks out over the eye. Like, see this, dude, are you cool with me touching you? Okay. See this space right here in him between his eye and the end of his nose? See how that's wider? You don't have that so much with you, right? It's much. There, y'all get a bunch of nose jobs. Asian women in particular. Like, so what people want is, Asians want this look right here. Like, dude, you got it. Like how the eyebrows come out, this brow bone comes out over. The eyes are back in the face, in the skull a little bit, and his nose sticks out. And the nose job that Asian gets is to get this nose right there. They want that look. And so what you do is, like here, you got to build that up on this ridge, on the nose. So you got to build it up, because that's the white nose. That's the European nose. And you have yours is kind of similar here as well in that, right? So look, lots of what we see in the Asian community. A nose job? Anyone thinking about getting one? You want a nose job? Why? Because it's what? It's big. Wait, come here. Come here. Dude, your nose is not big at all. Are you kidding me? Dude, it's not big at all. Yeah. Wait, and what's wrong with your nose?
It's big.
What's big about it?
It comes out too much.
It comes out too much?
Yes.
Do you think it's big? Dude, not compared to like that dude's nose, you know what I mean? Shit. It's like...
Alright, so let's start off with the girl first. So she said that her nose is long and it's big, alright? So what she means as big is, when you look at her from the front side view, her nose is very wide and it appears really, really big. So it's not within the inner iris of her eyes, it's actually past it. So from looking at her straight forward, her nostrils flare out. That's why she means as wide. Now it is also wide from the side view profile as well, and I will kind of get to that later once we get to that point. But let's start off with this first measurement, which is the nasolabial angle, and hers is at a tier 2 at 93 degrees. So this indicates to me that her nose is not really too downswung, is at the normal range. And yeah, so this is not really bad at all. Now the Caucasian guy, I know he analyzed his nose as well, and he said he has the preferred nose. Now the reason why he said he has a preferred nose is because, and I'm gonna get the mouse real quick, this is where his nasion starts. All right, now most people's nasion is probably going to be a little bit lower set right here, where like the middle, or like a little bit down here. So if you're ethnic, your nasion is going to be positioned a little bit lower, and just because it's positioned a little bit lower doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that it's going to be, I guess you can say, less aesthetically pleasing. But overall, you don't want it to be too high up and you don't want it to be too low. So you don't want it to be set too high, too low. You want it to be kind of like in the middle, so you can have a good balance in between. So his nasolabial angle is 118. 118 means his is a little bit too upturned, just only by 1 degree. So really, this is not really like a flaw or anything like that. This is normal as well. And this can be a little bit on the feminine side, so I guess that's why it would be a tier 2 or getting towards that range. Now the last guy, the Asian, I think he was like a Southeast Asian person, and his is at 111 degrees. Now 111 degrees is perfectly ideal, and yeah, so he has enough upturnedness to his nose, and this is perfectly fine. And his is, it doesn't seem like it's upturned, but it actually is. But yeah. Now let's get to her nasal projection. Now her nose is actually not projected, believe it or not. I know she said her nose is, but it's really, really not. And what this means is that her nose doesn't have that 3D-ness to it. It's not projected forward. It's almost kind of like stationary. And another thing why it looks less projected too and less how should I say it? Bulbous, I guess you could say, or a little bit wide, kind of like a parrot's beak nose or something like that. Like it just looks kind of like flared out a little bit right here. And bulbous and rounded is because if your nasal bridge isn't straight, it's not going to look aesthetically pleasing. And if it's rounded like this, it's just going to make your nose look like really, really wide right here around the midsection area. So she does have a hump right here. Then this is what they call a dorsal hump. So as you can see, this blue line that goes straight down here, the dorsal hump kind of goes around that blue line. So you don't want your nose to do that, especially for a female. And yeah, it's gonna make the nose look less aesthetically pleasing. So she does not have a very projected nose, believe it or not. All right, so his nasal projection is pretty well, and he barely gets it in within the ideal range, and this is perfectly fine for a Caucasian man. And yeah. And the last guy, his nasal projection is ever so slightly behind at 0.53 when it's supposed to be 0.55. But this is not too bad at all. He only got a little bit slight less projected nose, but this is not bad at all, especially for a Southeast Asian person. Now, her nasal width to height projection, so how high in length is the nose, how lengthy is her nose, and her nose has a decent amount of length to it, so that is perfect. So his nose is a little bit stubby. It's not lengthy at all. It doesn't have the necessary height that it needs. And this also tells me that his nasal bridge isn't as lengthy as it might seem to be as well. 1.04 is going to get him out of tier 4. And yeah, so he doesn't have a very lengthy nose. It might seem like it because his nasal bridge at where it starts is a little bit higher set. But just because you have a higher set nasal bridge doesn't mean you're going to have a nasal bridge that is long, which he does not have. Now, this guy has the opposite. He also has the necessary height that is needed to have a lengthy nose. And his nasal bridge is actually longer than the previous guy's nasal bridge. It might not seem like that, but if you really look at it, his nasal bridge is a bit longer than his, or actually a lot longer than his, even though his nasal bridge starts at a lower set point. So as where his nasal bridge starts right here, where it's lower set, this guy's nasal bridge starts a little bit higher up, where it's higher set. But just because your nasal bridge is higher set doesn't mean that this is going to be longer. But his is lower set, and his is way longer, as you can see. Even though it's less projected, it's still longer. So this is why this measurement right here is very important. Her nasal tip angle, so this is going to be the last measurement that I'm going to talk about for all three of these people. And I'm going to just say right now, the Southeast Asian guy has the best nose out of all of them, believe it or not. And I also want y'all to tell me, who do y'all think has the best nose out of all three of these people? Is it the Hispanic girl? Is it the Southeast Asian guy? Or is it the Caucasian guy? Just let me know down in the comment section below and tell me, who do y'all favor the most, all right? So her nasal tip is 134 degrees. That means that she does have a rounded nasal tip at the end, and it's kind of bulbous. So her nose overall, it just appears really, really big, all right, from the side view angle. So that's one of her flaws. So the dorsal hump, the less projected nose, and also her nasal tip. So if she did have a projected nose, a sharper nose, or a sharper nasal tip, and no dorsal hump, she literally will have the perfect nose, all right? Now, it might not seem like that because of her dorsal hump, I guess. It just makes the nose look less aesthetically pleasing, and it just makes the nose look just bulbous. So if her nose was more projected, it wouldn't look too bulbous. It would look more projected and less stationary. His nasal tip angle is 127, so this is slightly outside of the ideal range, but this is not bad at all. It's just that it's just slightly a little bit more rounded, but this is still not bad at all. This is better than most people nasal tip that I've measured anyway. So, but yeah, the last guy, the Southeast Asian, is 115 degrees. 115 degrees is ideal. And if y'all haven't noticed, he does have a very sharp nasal tip. Now, some of y'all might think that this guy nose isn't the best, right? But the problem is y'all not actually looking at his nose. Y'all looking at his face, right? Obviously, the Caucasian guy might be a better looking person than the Southeast Asian overall. But if you look at just the nose mythology, he actually has the best nose out of all three of them, right? But if I was to pick one, I would pick the Southeast Asian nose. So the teacher who decided to pick this guy actually probably did a bad decision, because this guy has a nose that is different from any other Southeast Asian, in my opinion, in terms of just the nasal tip and just the nose mythology. Because usually Southeast Asians, they have less projected rounded nose, and he kind of has a little bit of the opposite, but his is actually lower set, so his nasal bridge is lower set. So that is one common factor that a lot of Southeast Asians people do have. So just because your nose is lower set, or your nasion is lower set on your skull, doesn't mean anything bad. It's just an ethnic thing, I guess you could say. But you could still look be an attractive person with a lower set nasion. Alright, so that is pretty much it for this video. Hopefully y'all like. Please subscribe. If you want me to rate your face, I'll do that. And yeah, I'm out. Peace.